Welcome to Dallas Unplugged, our podcast series that will focus on our Cost of Home platform. What is Cost of Home? Cost of Home is our advocacy platform that will focus on issues that matter most to the communities that we serve. We'll be talking about home affordability or inaffordability. We'll be talking about how do we make Dallas better, a better city for all of our residents. I am Tosha Herron-Bruff, your host, and we are on location in DC for Habitat for Humanity's Habitat on the Hill Day 2020. And I have the honor to sit down with Natosha Reid Rice, who is the Associate General Counsel for Real Estate and Finance for Habitat International. Welcome to Dallas Unplugged, Natosha. Let me say, you and I have met before, and the first thing I think we both connected on when we looked at each other's badge, we said, your name is spelled the right way.
That's right.
Right?
With an O.
With an O. That's how it's supposed to. Our mothers, they were smart.
Yeah.
They knew that this is how you're supposed to spell Tasha.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a very common name. When I was in junior high school, it seems every other person was named Tasha. It's popular. But you were telling me you think it's on the comeback now.
I think so. I just keep hearing it. I keep hearing all these new Tashas and Natashas and Latashas running around.
Yeah.
But very few spell their names the way we spell it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's like a vowel lesson. With the A, it's Natasha. With an O, it's Natasha.
And I've been explaining that for years.
Yeah, me too. Since first grade.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So, point of education. So, Tasha, I was looking at your bio, and you are a woman who has made many accomplishments. And one of the things that I've said, of course, you graduated from Harvard Law School. You've done all these amazing things. And one of the things that struck me was that you were the associate pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, the famous Ebenezer Baptist Church linked to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. How does that come about, and how has that kind of influenced and shaped your kind of life's path and your life's work?
Yeah, that's great. So I started my preaching ministry my first year of law school. So for me, ministry and law have always been a tag team, which means that faith and justice have always worked together in my understanding of my calling and my vocation. So when I moved back to Atlanta, I felt very strongly led to start a full-scale women's ministry at Ebenezer. They had some women's ministries, but not a full-scale, comprehensive, women's-oriented ministry that focused in on equipping and empowering women to use their voice to not only advocate for others, but also to call out to God for themselves, right? And so it was a wonderful journey there. I was there 11 and a half years. And through that work, also did a lot of advocacy, pulled the ministry and the church into the issue of sex trafficking, worked quite a bit on getting the passage of 3 pieces of legislation in the state of Georgia to decriminalize the victims of sex trafficking. Atlanta is one of the main hubs in our country for that atrocity and that modern day slavery. But also Ebenezer, just in working with the pastor there and other ministers there, was just a wonderful way to engage our faith through social justice, through the importance of filling our souls so that we could go out and fill the souls of others who were very passionate about being activists on this earth, right? It's like there's a line in the Lord's Prayer, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And can we be the agents for that work? So I continue that work. I began in January partnering with a very large progressive Episcopal church in Atlanta, All Saints, and we've launched a Faith in the City series where each month we'll focus on a different social justice issue that impacts our city, our country, our state. And actually this month we're focusing on housing affordability. Wow. And so really looking at how does our faith provide an imperative for ensuring that all God's children have a decent place to call home.
Right, because everybody deserves that same opportunity and that same right. We were talking earlier in an earlier panel discussion here that no matter where you live, where you are, everybody deserves the same basic rights, right?
Yeah.
And so isn't it wonderful when your faith and your work align?
Absolutely.
I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity to work in a space where what they believe and the work that they're doing converge. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Habitat for me has been that space, right?
Yeah.
So out of law school, I did like many other folks that graduated with me from Harvard who had a lot of debt
Yes.
and went into the private sector. So practiced in a private firm in New York, a private firm in Atlanta, in the real estate space because of my interest in housing. Like I went to law school to be a civil rights litigator and got introduced to housing and the issues of housing and housing affordability my second year of law school. So Habitat has provide kind of that full circle opportunity to really engage faith, engage expertise, engage passion to make a difference. And we some people may hear this and say, why does everybody deserve a place to the decent, affordable place to live? And we think back on some of our founding documents as a nation, pursuit of happiness, right? How do you pursue happiness when you can't even lay your head safely in a place and call it home? How do you pursue happiness when, for instance, in our campaign, we know that 1 in 6 Americans pay more than half their income on housing? That doesn't leave you much else to pay for adequate health care, to make sure you're in, and your children are being, properly educated, to take care of the other necessities of survival, let alone think about happiness. So how do we set up our communities and our people so that we as a nation are stronger, we as a state are stronger, we as a city are stronger?
Right. So you talk about the cost of home platform, and I know you have a big role in rolling that out. We're here because of the cost of home. Tomorrow, we're going on the Hill, and we're going to be talking to legislators about here are our legislative priorities around cost of home, and believing the fact that cost of home should be something that everybody can afford. Talk a little bit about cost of home in that platform.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about our advocacy campaign. So we know that our affiliates like Dallas and others have been involved in advocacy for years, right? What this allows us to do now at the national level is to really amplify that work. I say it's like we've all kind of combined our mega horns from all over the country into one large one that allows our voice to really, hopefully, gain traction at the federal level, but also to support and encourage other affiliates who are new to the advocacy space to really make a difference in the places in which they serve. So through the campaign, we're looking at things like access to credit, how to increase the supply and the preservation of housing stock. We're looking at what is the impact of inclusionary zoning? How can we continue to make space for folks that have ordinarily been displaced, right? When we've had development and gentrification, how do we then bring also resources to existing locations where people have had to really move far outside of our city centers because they can't afford to live in the city centers, right? And then how do all these different things work together for an ecosystem of a community, transit-oriented communities? Many of our cities are losing out on a great workforce because folks can't afford to live in the city.
Dallas, hello, are you listening?
And there's inadequate transportation outside of the cities to bring them in, right? So I think we're at a wonderful place where we have a lot of great opportunities to think more intentionally about how we build our cities, how we incorporate the people that are part of our civic community, and for politicians to realize civic engagement increases with home ownership. Civic engagement increases with housing stability, whether you're renting or owning, right? We look at places, I live in Georgia and I work a lot with our Georgia affiliate. In Georgia, there was one study done that said 70% of the families that are able to own a home and come to the home ownership program get off of public assistance. I mean, it has such a great impact. I mean, and then we know the health outcomes and the education outcomes that come from having a stable place to call home. So this national platform, this national campaign really allows us to share best practices, allows us throughout our network to really help with messaging, help to gain traction, and help to elevate this housing issue. We're finally getting chatter, right, among our legislators at the state level. We're getting chatter even in this campaign season. We've heard housing discussed in some of the Democratic candidate debates. So, I mean, in a way that we haven't before, we have such a prime opportunity, I think, to make an impact on behalf of so many who need this collective voice to have momentum and traction.
So what do you say to, Habitat's been around for a long time, and most of what we're known for is building. They think about construction. They think about building a house, which is all fantastic and great. But I think you and I and the 350 advocates that are here today realize that it goes beyond home ownership. Talk a little bit about the broader conversation around housing and the impact on our communities as a whole. How do we elevate that through advocacy beyond home ownership?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. A lot of people do ask that question. Well, Habitat is about home ownership,
Yeah.
and that is true.
Yeah.
We have the seat of home ownership, but we want also at the table to sit with us folks that are working in the rental space, folks that are coming up with creative and innovative housing preservation solutions. We want the folks that know zoning. We want folks that are a part of the continuum of housing, because we have to have a pipeline for home ownership.
Right.
People don't just wake up one day and qualify for
That's
a mortgage or a loan. So we're looking at the various aspects and vantage points and entree points into the housing continuum. And I think that is important, because what we're able to do at Habitat, we've got a very powerful brand. And if we can be conveners of others who are involved in this space, I think we really lend and leverage our brand in a way that creates great cachet in our state houses and here on the Hill. I also think it's important for us to lend our expertise. And many of the folks, as we know, throughout our network who are working in our affiliate space are community organizers, and they're activists, and they are partnering with folks who are also doing things that are complementary to housing, and that housing is complementary to, right? And I think essentially what we realize is housing is an essential component of community.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about, and this is part of painting the picture of who's in need of an affordable place to call home, building community, you're able to build community now with the teachers that you leave your kids with all day. You're able to now build community with police officers who provide a safe place to live. We're able to build community with firefighters. We're able to build community now when we have affordable housing options in our communities. We're able to have a spectrum of folks within our communities that we can relate to, because now we go to the grocery store together.
I think that's such an interesting point. And, I think it's important because I think the face of affordable housing, a lot of people think very narrowly when they think of what that looks like and who is the benefactor or beneficiary of affordable housing. But to your point, it expands to the teachers that teach in our educational system and to the fire and police officers that serve our communities. It's the waitress and wait staff at our local restaurants. It impacts, so many areas of community.
And it's kind of really helping to shift a narrative that has been so influenced by kind of what we call NIMBYism, right?
Yes,
not in my backyard. And what we're doing by doing that is we're really carving out communities that are not multi-layered. We're losing the mosaic that is the beauty of our country. And so we want to change that narrative and remind all of us what it means to live in community, what it means to have accountability among neighbors, and we know that Habitat has a Christian focus. And I love this one quote that I've read recently where it says, when asked to choose between my religion and my neighbor, I always choose my neighbor because my religion never told me to love my religion.
Wow.
Right?
Powerful.
And so how we think about what it means to be a neighbor, how we think about what it means to create community with that neighbor. This campaign really provides us with a great framework and an opportunity to influence the narrative, influence policy, and influence the minds of folks who are into building America into a great nation.
Yeah. I know you do a lot of work with women in leadership. And I saw a TEDx that you did a while back, and I was so inspired by what you talked about. You talked about the woman's power to change the world, and you quoted Sojourner Truth, and you quoted Beyonce, and I thought that was interesting. Essentially, girls running the world. And it was timely for me in the fact we just hosted a panel discussion in Dallas with women advocate leaders, and we had a cross section of leadership there. What do you tell the next generation of women advocate leaders? How do you inspire and encourage them to do the work that you do? Because there's a lot of work to be done. And I think there's some momentum here. How do we get those young leaders actively engaged?
Well, I think one is we invite them to panels like the
Yeah.
one you had, right? And I think too, I love history. I love women's history. I love looking back in particular at African American women who have really changed the fiber of this country. So for instance, the Sojourner Truth quote is, she says kind of in jest in response to some of the criticism she had made in her Ain't I a Woman speech. If it was a woman who turned the world upside down, then we together as women can turn the world right side up.
Yes.
Right? And so what we hear in that quote is a woman who came into an audience of folks that didn't necessarily support her, and yet she stood with courage and confidence because she believed in what she was fighting for, right? So what I would tell young women today is you've got to really believe and connect to what it is you are fighting for, identifying that injustice and finding a way to have a voice in that space that shines the light on the injustice in such a way that you can invite others to fight with you. So you've got courage in Sojourner Truth. And in Beyonce, she says girls run the world, right? But she also puts in the work.
Yes.
For that message to come forth with the power that it had, she has an amazing work ethic. So I also say to our young women, put in the work.
Yeah. Faith without works is
Faith
dead.
without works is dead. That's right. Hone your craft. Like there are no shortcuts to influence, in my opinion. You know, if you really hone your craft, if you find ways and learn, never stop learning, you know, put yourself at the feet of someone else. And that doesn't mean in a subjugated way. It means go listen to someone who's doing work in an area that you are interested in and learn, study, hone your craft, do your work, right? And then when you're able to come to the microphone, what you have to say has great import and great impact.
So what do you, at the end of this, you know, Cost of Home is a 5-year program.
Yeah.
And when you look at the end of this, you know, how do we know that we've done what we've set out to do? What in your mind is success when we talk about the end of the Cost of Home program? What do you envision that to look like?
Yeah, so our 5-year goal is to impact impact the lives of 10 million people with housing solutions.
Okay.
So that's our grand goal. But I also believe that a great track of our success is seeing how many other advocates we brought into the space. You know, helping people cross those very harsh partisan lines that we're dealing with right now and join forces on behalf of the greater good of our communities, of our states, of our country, that now speak with a more united voice on how to speak up for those who are some of the most vulnerable in our country, right? How to find policies that support those who are at the bottom end of the area median income spectrum, how to make sure we put safety nets in place so that our children have greater outcomes in the education space and the health space, reducing child homelessness, right? And then, of course, that branches out, reducing child hunger, you know, and finding ways to increase and have better health outcomes for our children and our families around the state. And so we'll have various metrics that we're obviously going to track throughout the campaign. But our larger goal is clearly kind of our beacon and our guiding light, as well as some of these other goals and policy wins that we hope to have at the state and the national level.
So tomorrow we're going in the cold, in the rain. We're going to have a rally.
That's right.
We're going to have our chant. We're going to be fired up and ready to go. And, you know, and what people don't know, and you and I were talking about this, is you know our mayor, Eric Johnson. So is there anything that you could tell us about Mayor Johnson?
The many conversations I've had with him, I know he loves your city.
Yeah.
He loves Dallas.
Yeah.
I know he's very earnest about making a difference in the city. I know housing is on his mind, and finding a way to deal with the many inequalities that you face, not only in Dallas, but in all of our other major urban areas. So you all have a great mayor, and I think it makes for an opportune time, right, for you all to get some things passed and in place during his tenure in ways that perhaps you haven't been able to do thus far.
Well, we're gonna, Dallas Habitat is gonna be working very hard to do that, and we feel like we have a great ally in him and in you.
Awesome.
I want to thank you so much for taking time to be here, and I just think you're amazing. I look forward to us working together.
Awesome. I look forward to it as well. And Eric, my bill's in the mail.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is great.
Stay tuned because we have some amazing guests that will be joining us on this journey. You don't want to miss it.